Hi there students. Okay, this video is about wet words. So if something is wet, it's covered or it's saturated with water. If the floor is wet, you can see the water on the surface of the floor. But what about damp? Okay, if something is damp, it's slightly wet. You probably can't actually see the water shining on the surface, but damp, just slightly wet. Normally, if you say something is damp, it's a bit negative. Damp to me gives the idea of cold and wet. Yeah, I hung the clothes out to dry, but when I brought them in, they were still a little bit damp, so there was just a little bit of water on it. If you put your hand on a wall, maybe you can feel that it's damp. You can't see it's damp, but you can feel there's water, there's humidity inside it, okay? And damp normally has the idea of cold as well. Now, moist, if something is moist, again, it's slightly wet, but normally moist is more positive. Okay, it's a more positive word. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if something's moist, it's got little bits of water on it. You could use a moisturizer for your skin, but you could describe a roast chicken as moist or a cake as moist. It's not completely dry. Then we have humid. Humid talks about high levels of water vapor in the atmosphere, in the air. So if you go to the jungle, it's very humid. There is very high humidity. But this is talking about the water dissolved in the air. Now we get to some more interesting words. You could have dank. Dank means unpleasant, slightly damp and cold. So I went down into the basement of the house and it was very dank. Yeah? If somewhere's dank, it's wet and unpleasant and not very nice. Clammy. Clammy again is damp. Unpleasantly damp, slightly sticky, so maybe your hand almost sticks to it. When I hear the word clammy, I think of somebody who's feeling ill, and you put your hand on them, and they are cold but damp, slightly wet. Yeah, so damp, clammy, damp and sticky, damp and slimy. Yeah, so if somewhere is dank and clammy, it's not a very nice place. Something could be drenched. If something's drenched, it's thoroughly wet. It's covered liberally with water. To drench has an idea of pouring water over the top of it. I went out without an umbrella and it poured with rain, and I walked for half an hour in the rain. I was completely drenched. Notice to drench also has a different meaning to give an animal forcibly a liquid medicine. But normally to drench, to cover in water, to cover in liquid, but from the top. And then we have the word soaked, which also means extremely wet. But notice, if you soak something, you put it in water and you leave it there for some time, yeah, and it absorbs the water. Whereas to drench, I have the idea of you're pouring the water on top. Yeah, so both drenched and soaked, extremely wet. The floor is drenched. There's that much water all over the floor. The floor is soaked. I have an idea that the water is actually being absorbed a little bit by the floor. Okay, so something can be wet, okay, covered with water. It could be damp to the touch. If you touch it, you can feel it. And damp gives the idea of cold. Something can be moist. Moist is normally more positive. You use that for food, yeah? Or a moisturizer for your skin. If something is humid, we're talking about water dissolved in the atmosphere, in the air around us. The jungle is humid. Then we have dank, which is unpleasant and wet and cold, damp and cold, like a cellar or something like that. Something that's clammy is damp and sticky to the touch. If you put your hand on someone and they're clammy, they're cold but damp, so they're probably not very well. To drench, to cover in water from above, and to soak, to put in water, but extremely wet. Okay? So there you go, lots of water words. If you enjoyed the video, give it a rating, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Wet, damp, moist, humid, dank, clammy, drenched and soaked.